force you to share what you have done. Then I think I didn't know it was exam malpractice. I thought I was being kind. But even the one who allows yourself to be copied, or the one who decides to share your work with someone else, is implicated in exams malpractice. Okay, any others? Any others? Yeah, a few more in the video. Did you pick on any others? Anybody else? Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Catherine. Anyone else? What else did you pick from that video? Share what you have done. Sorry, it's not clear. Okay.
I think, okay, you're very loud, but maybe just if you can't hear clearly, also increase your volume, but you can also increase yours, Hiba, even though it's very clear.
Okay.
Carry on, please. Thank you.
All right. And then, yeah, Grace is asking for help from a friend. Yes, examination is not, or assessment is not the place where you should be asking for help. If you want help, ask for help outside. Ask people to help you learn. You don't ask for help during the exams or when you are doing the final assessment. All these things contribute to academic dishonesty. Thank you so much for those feedback. I just wanted to show this so that we realize that it's something with us. We live with it. It's something most of us have done, right from primary school to secondary school, and we take it to the tertiary institution. As we go on, we'll talk about the implication of this behavior. So what are the forms of academic dishonesty? And Dr. Kamala talked about some of them. So cheating, as you saw in the clip, fabrication. And fabrication is not only fabricating evidence, not if you're doing an assessment or a research dissertation, coming up with data that is lying about data. When I was in school, I saw some of my colleagues do that. When we're doing our undergraduate dissertation, people would just sit down and complete surveys by themselves. This is where academic malpractice or dishonesty starts, because nobody is looking, so you think you can get away with it. You're looking for a sample of 50 people for your research. You decide to sit down and complete it yourself. I have seen that, when I was doing my undergraduate studies. Now, fabrication could also be like what the man did in the video, when we lie about our situation just so we can get extensions on assessment. We always say someone is dead or you are sick. Number of times students have lied about sickness just so they can delay submission of assessment. These are all forms of academic dishonesty. Plagiarism, we already know about, so I would not touch on that. Other forms of malpractice that we see around, one is collision. What is collision? Working with others on an assignment that you should have done individually. We have various forms of assessment. You have assessments where you're supposed to work in a group, but then you have other ones where you're supposed to think by yourself. So sometimes people, out of laziness, decide to work together and then submit this assignment individually. That is also another form of academic dishonesty. Commissioning. Instead of doing the work yourself, people decide to pay others, and there are so many here in the UK. There are so many organizations that are really, they are not supposed to be doing that contact students behind, the door, send emails around to tell people we are going to do your dissertation for you, and then we will help you with assessment. So people pay these groups of people to do their assessment for them. This is also one form of examination malpractice or academic dishonesty. And if you are found out here in the UK and in many institutions, you would be expelled. It's just an automatic expulsion from the university. Falsification, it's just like the fabrication I talked about. And then research misconduct, failing to get ethical approval before you do your research, or even when you do your research, because ethics will give you certain guidelines to follow. So if you do not follow these guidelines and you decide to go and ask questions that you were not meant to ask, this all will constitute academic dishonesty. And these are things we see. I saw it when I was doing my undergraduate studies, my master's studies, and then being a lecturer here, we see it on a daily basis. It's something that students just keep doing. Now, what is wrong with it? Why someone would say it's a harmless, if I copy my friend's work, I just need a little bit of help for me to pass. I want a few comments in the chat box. Why should we not get friends to help us to do? Why should we not get others to commission others to help us pass our exams or our assessments? Anyone? Dr. Kamala touched on some of these already. I just wanted to see if people were listening. Anyone, why is it wrong? Dr. Kamala talked about 2 things when he was talking. Do we remember? Alice, am I allowed to mention names?
Yeah, can I comment?
Yes, please.
Yeah, it is very wrong because if, for example, you're a structural engineer and somebody else did your examinations, these are the people build the buildings which collapse and kill people. Because the graduates of, when you cheat through your school, you cannot do what you are expected to do as a graduate of that program. So that this is a big consequence. You can imagine the consequences if you are a pharmacist, if you are a doctor, if you are a psychologist. I think some of you have watched a clip where Mr. Bean, I think it's from the UK, is a fake doctor and he does a very strange thing. So the consequences are dire. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so much. And you've touched on everything. When Dr. Kamala started his talk, he said he knew someone. He was not going to mention his name. I'm sure all of us can think of someone. I have a colleague who, I would say due to my own negligence, copied my work when I was doing my master's. I was called. I didn't know we were working together and I didn't know he had copied my work. Today, he works at the World Bank. And whenever I see him, that is what I remember. I'm not mentioning his name, but I've told a few people when I saw him on LinkedIn, I went like, this is the guy who copied my work when we're doing my master's program, and that got me into trouble. So you don't want to, if you're a student here, you don't want to be that person that someone would point fingers at. It destroys your professional reputation. It has legal repercussions, but then, first of all, it will destroy your professional reputation. And I think Dr. Kamala also mentioned another example. In Ghana, I come from Ghana, there's been situations where ministers, you have to go through vetting. At that stage, people bring out these issues. They go, you think these things will never catch up with you. But then when you go for a political appointment or something, then some of these things you would have done 20 or 30 years ago will start coming up. People will go and dig your thesis and then use that against you. So these are some of the reasons why today's topic is really important, and I'm glad that we are having a discussion about it. We cannot take it for granted. So what is your role? What can you do as a student? First of all, what is being organized today is a step in the right direction. Us having discussions and talking about these things, being aware, raising awareness. Because really, when I was doing my secondary school examination, of course, you know that you shouldn't copy from others. Like I said, I was one of the top students in my class. So you feel like you're helping your colleagues, So yeah, we did that. I feel like, okay, I regret it. It's something I shouldn't have done. But yeah, today I know better, and that is why I talk about it. It's not something, no, you should never say, I feel like I'm helping someone. You are not helping anyone when you give out your work for someone to copy. It's not just a person copying who is in the wrong. You are also not doing the right thing. Now, attribution. You've heard a lot about plagiarism. We are not saying do not use other people's ideas. In fact, we encourage you to use that. That is research. Use other people's ideas. However, learn how to credit other people's ideas. Data, images, theories, whatever it is that you are using, use it, but then credit people. Credit people for what it's called intellectual property. So just learn how to do this properly, and then just credit people, how to avoid plagiarism. So just learn to cite the sources and do it properly. That's one of the responsibilities as a student you have. Now, when do you need to cite? whenever you use quotes, I'm sure you know that whenever you use quotes, you should learn how to do it. If you have to use inverted commas, if you know where it's coming from, try and do that. Whenever you paraphrase, like sometimes we feel like once we've changed the whole sentence, you're good to go. Whenever you paraphrase, you need to cite. Whenever you summarize someone's work or ideas, you need to cite. Whenever you use an idea that someone else has already expressed, or when you make specific reference to the work of other people, or when someone else's work has been critical in developing your own ideas, you really, sometimes we think that we have new ideas, but really there's a lot of the things that have already been done. If you think you're having an original thought, this picture says, think again. A lot of the things have already been done. Just acknowledge those ones and add your ideas to it, or work further on those ideas that already exist. There are a few cases where you may not have to cite, so something that is common knowledge, information that an average person would know, cultural knowledge, things like that might be okay not to cite. Dr. Alice, do I have some time? I wasn't timing myself.
Yes, carry on, Hiba.
Right. So before I ask for questions, I wanted to test this, and I want some answers in the chat box again. If I put someone's ideas in my own words, so you changed, I just talked about this, so I will not ask this, but this one, I need to cite academic papers and books, but anything from the internet, so when you go to Google or you find stuff on the internet that doesn't really look like it's coming from a particular website, it is fine not to cite. Is that true or false? Can you just pick anything from the internet if it's not coming from a particular journal or paper or website without citing it? Is it false? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, did I hear false? Thank you, Lydia. Thank you. Okay, how about, let me ask another question. Say you do an assessment in year 2 on a particular course, and then it's your own assessment. You go to year 3, you're doing another course, and then you decide to use that part of that assessment you did in year 2 for submission in year 3. Do you have to cite it? It's your own work. Do you have to cite that? Any comments in the chat box? Lydia, is that yes? Okay. Yes, you have to cite. Yes, indeed. So even when it's your own work that you have submitted, it doesn't even have to be in the same university. If you've done it, for your undergrad work, you decide to go for further studies in the master's education somewhere else in a different country, you still need to cite your own work. If I change the words, but use the sentence structure. Okay, so what about sentence structure? So you don't really use, you need to cite. Thank you. So my message to you is that you just need to learn how to cite properly and cite everything. Okay, thank you, Austin. Thank you, Kimbo. Thank you so much. Now, my parting message before I take questions. Success without integrity is failure. Okay, you can cheat and do all, you can give your work to other people, pay people to help you do your dissertation, to help you pass your exams. But if you do this without integrity, it is failure. People might not know, but then just know that you will know it yourself. Between you and your God, you know what you have done. So when you are able to maintain your highest standards of integrity, regardless of what others may do, you are destined for greatness. You are destined for greatness. So the decision is yours. You might decide to go the easy way and then get up there, or do the right thing. When I watched that clip, look at how much effort the man put in just to cheat. Don't you think that that effort could have just been put into learning so that you could pass the exam? Look, he faked his arm. He said his arm was broken. He had an eye patch. He had something in his mouth. Only God knows what is on that thing that he rolled out. So we put in so much effort to do the wrong thing. We can just channel that energy to learning how to do the right thing. I would rest my case here and take some questions. Thank you very much. Any questions, please?
Okay, thank you, Hiba. You can stop the sharing. That was well done. Thank you very much. So we can take, just like we agreed earlier, we take one question and then we go on to the next presenter. We have lost a little time due to technology issues, but we should be able to recover. So yeah, any burning question, you can unmute and then just ask. Going once, going twice. Okay, I'm sure there are lots of burning questions from the students. So Professor Rina, do you want to speak? I can see you've unmuted.
I wanted the students to speak before I do. I don't know. You didn't get any?
The students are reflecting on their own, what they've done. I suppose.
So there's no comment from students before I say something?
No, there's nothing on the chat. So please go ahead, Prof.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that thanks for a very fantastic presentation, Dr. Iba.
Thank you.
I think there's a lot of what you call commissioning, where somebody pays another one to do their work. It is rampant, and I think the US and UK are the leading clients in having students whose work is done outside of the country, and Kenya is a hotspot. Kenyan students are at the top in the world in writing, doing assignments for other students. So I think this is something that, this is something that I think those developed countries don't know how to deal with. Is there a regulatory framework in the works, or is there a way that the UK, for example, where you are, they intend to fight this? It's I think I saw it being discussed in the parliament in the UK, so it's a big concern for the government. Second question would be the about citing other people's work. You discussed that also very well, but I just wanted to add that in terms of citing other people's work, there are instances where you make a special request to use a certain image or a figure. If you paraphrase a sentence, of course, you cite it according to the method that you're using. But in some instances, the students, if you're using a figure, for example, or a picture that is unique, sometimes it's good to write to that author or publisher of that book and say, can I use your image for my thesis or my work? And they usually respond within 12 hours if you write an email. I've never seen an instance where somebody says no. Academicians are always very free to. So if you're using significant amount of work or illustrations or figures from another scientist, it's always good to drop an email. I've seen this your figure in your publication or in your book. I want to put it in my thesis. Can you give me go ahead? And then so once they cite, you put in bracket used with permission. Yeah, you cite it and then you put in bracket. So a lot of students or even scientists don't know how to do this. But otherwise, kindly comment on the first question. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Prof. Yes, you are right. There's a lot of discussions going on. I am not sure that they've come out with any particular policy as to how to really address it. I just know what is being done in the university. So for masters, because I teach a lot of master students here, and that is why we have a thorough viva. You know, it's a way, because if you do your own work, there's a way you would answer the questions. We know it from how you respond to the questions. So at that university level, that's the only way we are able to tell. And I know that it's not the best, because some people are really good. They'll get people to do it for them, and then they'll still learn and present it well. But at the national level, it is not yet, I'm not aware of the policies yet to address it. I know it's in discussion. People are aware, so they always tell students when they come, and then they make them aware that if we find out that you've done that, you know, they tell them from the beginning, you're losing your degree or, you know, your certificate. So it's just that kind of message, and, you know, making them aware that it's not right and things like that. But other than that, I'm not aware of what exactly has been put in place to be able to catch these culprits. Yeah. Hopefully in the next few months, something will come out, but at the moment, you know, yeah. So our Viva tends to be really, really very, very thorough. Because it's one of the ways they make sure that they grill you so that if you didn't do the work yourself, we will be able to tell. If you did it yourself, you will still be able to tell.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. And thank you for the comments.
Prof, I hope you're answered. Thank you very much, Dr. Hiba. Thank you for a good presentation. Thank you for all your contribution. I saw everybody actively participating, putting tests. We have questions, but we want to answer them during the panel discussion. So we are going to take now Dr. Mukua's presentation. I'm going to just project it. Dr. Mukua, are we able to hear you? If you're not able to hear you, since you are presenting on behalf of the director, can he just do the presentation for you? Dr. Mukua, I'm sorry, we can't still hear you. So Professor Orina, can we just ask you to please present on behalf of Dr. Mukua? Sorry for the technology issues. It happens and we completely understand. So please do not feel bad. This is the era we live in. To be better next time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Alice. So the presentation that Dr. Mukua was supposed to do is titled Academic Integrity in Academic Writing and Research. Next slide, please. So some areas to be covered: academic community, what it means, how this differs from previous experiences, having a critical voice in terms of your own style of writing, uniqueness, using these notes effectively in your written work. I think paraphrasing and quotations, how you can do this and avoid plagiarism. And the next one, what is academic integrity? The expectation is that lecturers, students, and researchers, and all members of the academic community are supposed to conduct themselves with honesty, trust, fairness, respect, and responsibility. This is what Dr. Kamara was talking about, I think, when Alice asked him what will be his message, a global message. The fact that you have to have all these aspects of integrity, honesty, trust, fairness, respect, and responsibility. If you are able to integrate this into your writing as a student or as a scientist, then it becomes very easy to avoid some of these pitfalls of plagiarism, cheating, and etc. The next slide. So academic integrity refers to the ethical practices that make university fair for everyone and includes policies in regards to cheating, plagiarism, and fabrication. I think in the university we do have draft policies in terms of examination regulations and procedures. We do have regulations on cheating, on how to deal with that. Plagiarism, we have Dr. Kubuli will talk about library. I know that there are some softwares in the library that you can use to detect plagiarism. The university is also developing policies on plagiarism.
Shall I move
continue? The next slide, yeah, please. So sometimes, especially if you are not experienced, students might engage themselves in cheating without realizing it. For example, Dr. Arapa talked about citation, how your student is supposed to cite, and somebody asked whether it is okay to cite your own work. Sometimes that can be misconduct if you overdo it. Because I remember there's a famous scientist from one of the universities in China, was a top scientist that was leading in citations. But then later it was discovered, when people were doing analysis of his citation record, they discovered that most of them were being done in cahoot with other people. to kind of increase the cycles of citations and numbers so that it was on top. So sometimes when you're doing students take, once the students have done their master's, for example, or PhD, and they have completed their thesis, the supervisors will ask them, okay, let's do a paper now or a manuscript. And the student goes and just copies the entire thesis and converts it into a manuscript. That is actually misconduct. That's not, because you're taking exactly what you've done in your thesis and you're taking it into a manuscript as a publication. So it's always not clear that if you cite your own work, that it is not misconduct. Especially like the example I've given, where some students always think that it's okay because it's my work, I can just copy the entire page and put it here. So there's the regulations. When you are citing yourself, you follow the same procedure: paraphrase, not use exact same words, not changing the structure of the sentence 2 or 3 words and then saying that is paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is that you write that statement in your own words, not removing 1 or 2 words and then saying that that's a paraphrasing. For you, if you want to understand how to do that or learn how to do that, there are a lot of tools online which can help you to learn how to paraphrase. Being part of the academic community, maybe I think I can use this to refer to the example I gave about my colleague at the university. It's always good to relate well with your colleagues, because the incident that affected one of my friends was because there was also dishonesty or some fights within the scientists in that department. So he was looking for fault in another person so that they can bring them down. So it's always good to work well with your colleagues, because all of us in the same community. And the other thing that makes it very important is that nowadays, because of the internet, I can easily know what Dr. Araba is doing in the University of Sheffield. I can just go online and Google and check everything in regards to our research or our academic work. So we are, all of us, although we might be very far from each other, we are one community. It's very important to be able to work with others well, and with of course, with integrity. The next slide, please. Key to being part of the academic community is ethical integrity. I've talked about that. Move on to the next one, please. So maybe what I can say about this page, I'm trying to digest what the Dr. wanted to say. It is not my presentation, so that's why I slowed down some time. Is that the writing experiences can be different based on the experiences that you have had before. But generally, what the Dr. wanted to say here is that it's very important for you to find your critical voice and your unique way of putting your information across. Writing in the university may be different to your previous experiences. Writing is your piece of research. It is not a review of what other people have said on the same topic. And then your argument should be supported by evidence and others that both agree and disagree with your position. Next, please. I think we talked about finding your critical voice. So there are 4 elements of critical thinking. That's argumentative analysis. I think for those who have attended classes in critical thinking, investigation, imagination, radical questioning, accept the knowledge, can change, see the whole picture or connections. Okay, go to the next slide, please. Okay, next. So I think here Dr. Mukwa wanted to project how you prepare as a student to do your writing. I think in my book, I've really done a very good job in explaining this. The best advice I can give a student, if you want to prepare to do a good write-up, is first of all, just read widely on that subject without any specific ideas in your mind. If you want to write a manuscript, for example, on an example, let me say manganese toxicity. Manganese is a heavy metal. And so before you start writing anything or any paper on that subject, just do very general reading on that subject for some time. You don't just sit down and say, I want to write on this topic. You put the papers on your table and you start writing. It usually doesn't work like that.
Chair, we're having some playback or something. I don't know if it's only me.
Please, Shama, can you please mute? Sorry about that, Professor Orina.
Okay. So somebody's asking if they can get the presentation. Yes, it should be made available. So I was just trying to tell students on how to prepare your write-up. Think about the topic, read widely about it, sleep over it. Think about it for 2-3 days. The third or fifth day, then you can start organizing doing your write-up. Sorry.
Maybe Professor Rina can stop because can no longer hear anything till the thing is sorted.
Dr. Alice, do we have issues with audio?
With volume? No, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're very audible. You've been, unless their volume on the other side is, they can increase their volume. I can hear you very well. Do other people have a problem hearing Professor Rina?
Yes, you're hearing many voices.
Yeah, so you need to mute. Everybody needs to mute so that you don't hear other voices. Okay, sorry about that. Prof, carry on. Yeah, some people have confirmed that you're very clear.
So citations are very important in writing because it demonstrates that you've gathered the evidence to support your ideas that you want to write about. It's always good to use credible quality sources. This is very important nowadays because we do have predatory journals. Predatory journals are what I might call fake journals that do not have a thorough review process, and therefore the content of the work that is published in those journals is not of good quality. So it's always very important for you to quickly have a look at the track record of that scientist, of that university, and that publication before you quote it. If you quote these fake journals, then it will reflect badly on your site. Read widely and at an appropriate academic level. That's important. For example, if you're doing research at the PhD level, the learning outcomes or the expected outcomes of your work are higher than for an undergraduate degree, for example. So it's always important to take that into consideration. Allow your reader to differentiate between your own work and those of others, okay? And make it easy for them to locate your work. Academic integrity, ethical integrity is important in all of these aspects. Continue, please. Next slide. So paraphrasing and plagiarism, I think Dr. has put it here very well. If I change 1 or 2 words here and there, this is good enough for a paraphrase. I think I talked about it. That's not the case. Paraphrase basically means that you write something using your own words. You digest that information and put it out in your own words. Removing 1 or 2 words is not called paraphrase. I think we'll share this presentation. This slide is explaining in detail on how you should paraphrase your sentences to avoid plagiarism. Other presenters have talked about plagiarism, so I'm not going to really repeat this, but maybe just go back before you go forward. Plagiarism is just not limited to words, but includes unattributed uses of images, graphs, audio, video, computer programs, or any other type of original work. That's very, very important. And maybe the other point up there, plagiarism may be intentional. We're mostly copying and pasting or reusing what others have done. Sometimes it can be unintentional, especially if you don't know the regulations or if you have not been sensitized. That is the reason why we are having this presentation, so that you know how to write without plagiarizing. Next, please.
Okay.
Next slide. So
It's
just go to the next one.
It's the last one.
That's the last one. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to make a few additional remarks that are not in this presentation, that have not been captured, that are very important. I talked about the consequences of academic issues with academic integrity, and I gave a very good example. Basically, I think use of online resources, one of the things in which maybe we need to talk about is how can you use online resources to avoid falling into plagiarism. And I think the librarian will talk about those.
Yes, she's next.
So in terms of research, there are very important issues that we have to take care in terms of integrity. Ethical approval, Dr. Kamara talked about, is very important. You must make sure that if you are doing research with animals or with humans or any other research that you're conducting, you must have ethical approval. One of the most important or common forms of cheating among postgraduate students is misrepresentation of data. That means that you beat the data until it accepts, it shows what you are looking for. Usually, if your supervisors are very keen, they will always catch you on this. But it's not good to manipulate data to show what you want. You should present data the way it is, or what it shows you when you're using your statistical analysis tool. This is another form of misconduct in research. And usually, if it is experiments, for example, in chemistry or biochemistry, if other scientists are unable to replicate your work, they will always suspect that the data was manipulated. The other scientists are unable to replicate your work. So it is usually an indication of potential misrepresentation of data. What about authorship? In the US, in UK, all over the world, people have gone to court. There have been court cases. Like, for example, if Dr. Alice is supervising a PhD student in a project that he has written a grant that is funded, gives that to a PhD student or a master's student, they do very good research. When it comes to publications, who's the first author? Can somebody say? Who's the Yes. Yeah. I wanted somebody to say the other way around, because most people don't know that. And there have always been fights between students and their supervisors. In biomedical sciences, including nutrition, biochemistry, chemistry, etc., the most important author is the last author. That means that is the owner of the lab or is the one who wrote the proposal, is it? The student who did the work in the lab or in survey or whatever it is usually the first author. But sometimes people don't understand this. So the supervisor wants to be the first author, yeah, which is completely wrong. So these are integrity issues, and there have been court cases, legal challenges on this. And then the other issue in terms of integrity in research is where scientists want to earn credit for a research that was done by another person. Maybe their part was very minimal, like now, Dr. Alice, or you write a proposal, and then you ask me to just look at it for you. Just maybe look at the general, just have a look and see if there's anything that can be improved. I cannot claim that I made a significant contribution to that proposal. So people claim credit for what they have not done. This is also integrity issues in research. So, and in one of the ways in which to avoid some of these pitfalls is to have agreement, or to make it very clear when you're engaging other people, so that if they're giving significant work, you can make it clear to them that, okay, because your input was significant, will you be okay if we include you as an author, but not as a first author? So one of the things that my supervisor taught me is that it's always important to have agreement at the start. Because some people will just come, because you ask them one question about your work, they'll say, okay, I was part of this. So that is also very important. But we need to talk about authorship.
Okay.
And just to conclude, I'm sorry, I can see that the time has gone.
Yes.
There are people who give laboratory technicians to do their research work. They never show up in the lab, but then they want to graduate with a master's or a PhD. That is very serious misconduct, and it's very rampant. So, I think Dr. Alice can relate to this. There are people whose PhD or masters, they never stepped in the lab. If they were there very briefly. They had assistants doing their work. And this is very serious research misconduct. And the other comment that is very important, just the last one, maybe you can allow me to say, is if you have written a proposal that has been funded, but then it comes out with a significant finding that requires maybe a patent or a product, who takes credit for that? Okay, this one has also been fights all over the world between the students and
Ruth Ndirangu, please can you mute?
And their supervisors, where the student says, "Oh, I did the work." Usually, just for your information, the principal investigator or the scientist who did the proposal owns the work. In most laboratories, once a student graduates, they even leave their laboratory notebook with the lab. You're not allowed to go with it. So never fight with your supervisors saying that this is your work, when indeed you were given that work by that person to do, but they supervised you. So the research always belongs to the supervisor or the scientist who initiated the proposal for that work. So this is an area that has also had a lot of controversy and legal challenges. But it can be, if we were to discuss it, it can be a whole topic for the day. Maybe they just conclude, just like a concluding statement. I just wanted to tell you something that a mediocre cheater or somebody who lies without integrity in academia will perpetuate that behavior via their students, and the circus will continue in a very vicious cycle, degrading the quality of education. That will be my concluding remark. I'm sorry that when I was talking about, when I was doing
carry on.
Presentation on behalf of Dr. Mukwa, sometimes I was not say, but I appreciate the opportunity to present on behalf. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very important. So I'm sure you're waiting and looking forward to the last presentation. We will have a short panel discussion. So Dr. Sarah Kibuge is our chief librarian, and she is talking about academic text software tools. She is the one who can help you so that you don't plagiarize. She is so important to your work that if you have not paid a visit to the library, please do so. So Dr. Sarah, over to you. I already made you a co-host, so you can go ahead and share your slides.
Thank you, Dr. Ojan.
You're welcome. You can share your slides. Yes. Yes, there you go.
You can see my slides?
Yes, I can.
Okay, and I hope you can also hear me.
We can hear you very well, but maybe increase your volume a little bit, and then you can project the slides in PowerPoint. Yeah.
I think you're good to go.
Yes. Yes, carry on, please.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe we cannot talk about Turnitin without mentioning about plagiarism. It has been mentioned quite a lot by the previous presenters. So what I just want to say is that if we have to look at Turnitin, it would be a whole day presentation. So what you're going to have this afternoon will just be like an appetizer. But I would like us to know that we have very high-level political figures who have resigned due to plagiarism, presidents, ministers, and so on, including some professors because they have plagiarized students' works. We also know about the Melania Trump and also the Michelle. We all heard about it, about the plagiarism. But because my colleagues have done a very good job in talking about plagiarism, I just want to mention basically about Turnitin and why we need to use Turnitin in any given situation. But I started by saying that so that we understand if all these people had used the software to check the plagiarism and the similarity, a lot of this would have been avoided. I don't need to say what plagiarism is. It has already been done very well by the previous presenters. But I would like us to say, how do we prevent the plagiarism? And I think Professor Urina, as he was presenting, he talked about the paraphrasing, the citing of sources. This is something all of us you have to think about, cite, and know how to paraphrase by using your own words. Planning your paper is important, and also how to take effective notes. This happens not only when you are a student, but even when you are doing research. Then the precaution. The most important, we need to provide proper references wherever and whenever required. And this is important. Again, it has been mentioned about providing the references even for photographs, diagrams, pictures, and so on. And it is important that once the originality check comes out, it is important to check again the content before we submit the document, because this is where now the Turnitin comes in. As we talk about Turnitin, I would like to mention that it is not the only software to detect plagiarism or similarity. We have quite a number of other softwares. We have PlugScan, Woodcood, but they have now merged to make what we now call original. And we also have either the one that we subscribe to, which means we pay for them, or the ones which are open source. So even for students, before submitting the papers, as much as you may not have access to the paid up softwares, you can always use the web-based open sources to check your papers before you present. We also have Grammarly, we have plagiarism check, and then we have Turnitin. Turnitin seems to be the one which is used by most of the universities in Kenya, and that is why we are saying it is used by more than 30 million students in more than 15,000 institutions and in 150 countries. So it is a tool to find and indicate the matching contents. I would like us to know that and also appreciate when we talk of plagiarism, when we do the check with the Turnitin, we are checking of the similarity. And when we talk of the similarity, it will show where each and every source or each and every maybe paragraph, the user or the student or the researcher got that information from. How similar are they? And therefore, when we look at Turnitin, we are saying it's a web-based plagiarism detection software, which is provided by turnitin.com. And this is important, that sometimes we need to cite very well for us to avoid getting these similarities and getting the plagiarism, as most of my colleagues have started with saying. So what are the features of Turnitin? I would like to say that we use Turnitin software in our TUK library, and it is not just in the library. Most of the staff, the lecturers, the professors, in fact, all of them are instructors, and they have Turnitin, and they can be able to check the students' work that they have. Therefore, it is not just the work of the library. We have given the professors the licenses, and each one of them can check and submit the papers. So what are these features of Turnitin, and why did we decide on Turnitin? One of it is that it is very easy to submit the papers, the articles or book chapters for you to check the similarity or to do the similarity check. then find and get source of the matching contents. You can be able just to, with the pointer of an arrow, you would know where that information came from, whether it is from a journal article, from a book, as long as it is online. Then there is instant receipt of the submission, and there is feedback, and you know the similarity of it, which you'll see later on in another slide. And therefore, it is important for each one of us to check, even for referencing, before we submit the work. So that is what is good about the features of Turnitin. Why Turnitin? Specifically, it helps to uphold academic integrity, which is so important in any university. It will also empower students to be able to give their best original work, and it ensures original work of the students, and the students are able to develop the students' original thinking skills to a very high quality. As much as we are talking about the students, it is this even also for the researchers. As we were saying, you may decide, I had written this article in 2020, I am writing another one, and therefore I can just pick a paragraph from there and put in the 2021 article. That will be self-plagiarizing. So it is always important. What is the original skill that you're bringing in the new article? And therefore it is important for us to know how to avoid it. We need to look at the 3 access levels for Turnitin. There is the administrator, and the administrator is the one who creates the instructors and downloads the statistics of usage of the Turnitin account. So we have a university administrator. Currently, the Director of Library and Learning Resource Services, who is myself, is the administrator for TUK. And we have created accounts for instructors. I had said that earlier, the professors, the lecturers, and quite a number. We have a 500 license, so we can be able to have 500 instructors for TUK. Then we have the instructor, and an instructor can create classes, assignments, add students, come up with the settings, and exclude the matching sources in the report. So this is the work of the instructor, that you can decide for the bibliographies or for the references, we don't need to include them when you are doing the similarity check. The reason being, the references will actually be the same, and they may show a very high level if you're going to include them. The rubric, like if you're having the dissertation, the Technical University of Kenya, what we put in the title page and all that, the instructor may decide to also exclude, because they will be common to all the students. If the instructor does not exclude that, again, it will show a very high level of similarity. Then, of course, there is the student who can upload a paper in the assigned class, download originality report, and filter the settings. I would like to just point out this 3rd access level for the students. This will depend on the number of licenses that a university has. And for ours, we have not had enough licenses for the students, and that is why we have given the rights to the instructors. The instructor can do that for the students. But I would like to mention that any student who has a problem and they would like to do a check of the similarity check, they can always come to the library, because myself and my team, it is something we can assist with them. I need to mention that Turnitin is quite an expensive software, but however, that does not stop us from making good what we have currently. And finances allowing, I am sure that we can be able to continue developing on the number of licenses, so that even for students, and especially the students for postgraduate, we could be able to give them the licenses so that they can check their similarity checks. This is one that I would like to just mention, even if we have talked about the plagiarism. Most of us are aware of this student of Maseno University who was suing a student of University of Nairobi just before graduation because of plagiarism. This was in the papers, and the case was taken to court and all that. I am saying this so that we know the seriousness of trying to copy or plagiarize somebody else's work. An epidemic in academia. And I think Professor Orina must have mentioned that yes, this epidemic, which is eating into Kenyan universities, is what we call as plagiarism. And we are saying thou shalt not steal, because once you plagiarize, there's no difference between stealing somebody else's thoughts and putting them as yours and the normal common thieves that we do know. So it is important to realize the danger of this epidemic in the academia. Then there has been an alarm over the plagiarism in the universities, and this was put in June 2016 in the East African Standard, that as I think Professor Orina said, you either pay somebody to do your work or you just copy somebody else's work, you present it, because you either want a promotion if you're a lecturer, or if a student, you want to graduate. So these are some of the vices that you're talking about. When we put your work through the Turnitin, it will indicate exactly where you got what information from. So what are the temptations to plagiarize? And I don't need to get into this. We know we have improved technology, we have access to the internet, we have availability to electronic resources, and we have access to other professional services. And when you fail to acknowledge sources where you got the information from appropriately, then this leads to plagiarism. I am not talking of plagiarism. My main concern is on Turnitin. But this is important, that because sometimes you just take information from the internet. When we put your work through the Turnitin, you realize sometimes you have 90% of the similarity, and this poses a great danger, not just to yourself as a researcher or a student, but even to the university as a whole. Which are the file formats that Turnitin allows? The Microsoft Word, the HTML, the Adobe PostScript, the text file, and PDF. But at any given time, you are allowed to have a submission of 20 MB. So if you have a large document, it may take a bit of time, but better spend that time putting your work through Turnitin rather than giving it out or submitting it without having taken it through the Turnitin to check for the similarity. The originality reports are what we can look at, and they are usually indicated in color in the Turnitin itself. But we are saying that these percentages which show the similarity of text are not a measure to plagiarism. You may have a blue which indicates 0 of no matching, but that doesn't mean that you have not plagiarized. The green, it is 1 to 24% of matching or similarity text. The yellow is 25 to 49% of matching. Orange is 50 to 74% of matching. And then we have the red, which is 75 to 100% of matching. There are times, and I'm sure for the lecturers who are here, and you have put some students' work through the Turnitin, there are times you'd get 100% of the similarity. Because a student, you pick Professor Ojuang's something, put it in his paper, pick from Professor Orina, again put, but then when you take this paper through the Turnitin, you realize that once you get the red, it will automatically show you that this student got this paragraph from Dr. Ojuang. This paragraph, it was from Professor Orina. this paragraph from maybe Dr. Kibugi and all that. So it is not just showing 75% of similarity, it will indicate exactly where that information is from. So this is just a sample of the report that you get. And for those of us who have been using these reports for the originality in the Turnitin, you will realize what we have on the left, which is in red, it indicates the similarity, and the red, definitely it has indicated to us the 75 to 100. And then on the right, it will show where each and every paragraph or sentence was written from. And therefore, these color codes, they will match between the submitted work and similar sources. And therefore, when you look at the above left panel, the paragraph 1 in red originated from the website list number 1 in the red, which is on the right. And you can click on the link to take you to exactly the original source. So it is not just telling you it is from Dr. Ojwang, it will take you to which article from Dr. Ojwang. The good thing about this report, it will not just indicate this, what is on the left, it will show you what is on the right. And when you click on the red on the right, and I hope you can see it, it will take you to the original source where that information was. And then you can be able to compare. This is what the original source says, and this is what this paper says. So for those of us who probably would like to cut and paste, just note that Turnitin will get to us if your document is taken through the Turnitin. So the report is displayed in 2 main sections, as I have already said, the left panel, which shows the submitted work, and the right panel, which shows matches found from the other authors. And as we look at this, it is important to know it could be from the website, it could be from books, it could be from journal articles. And since most of the universities today have got electronic resources, that is why the temptation is very, very high to just cut and paste. Why am I saying this? Even as you are cutting and pasting, it is important to read, understand, and put whatever you want to put on your paper in your own words. This will actually help you a lot. And as I said, because this is just not training as such, it's just giving you an appetizer. Anyone who would like to go through the Turnitin, I am available. We can go through sessions of training without a problem. And my staff and I, we are available. And I also want to mention that the library is developing a curriculum on information literacy. And some of the topics that are in that curriculum is academic integrity, intellectual property rights, copyright, anti-plagiarism, and referencing. And this curriculum is as a result of a requirement by the Commission for University Education that each and every university library should develop this curriculum and teach it as a common unit. So this is something which is in the pipeline. We have done 3/4 of the curriculum. We are hoping that we'll be able to present it as we move on. Then we look at how do you interpret the originality reports. And this is important for the instructor. That clicking the numbers on the right side of the report takes you to the student's report. And when you click on the colored text on the right, it will take you to the external link where that work was copied from or where that work is. And the judgment whether plagiarism exists or it does not exist need to be considered very, very carefully, because 0% of lack of similarity does not indicate there is no plagiarism. And then the higher percentage may not necessarily mean that there is plagiarism especially when you look at the quotations, which might be acknowledged, and the bibliographies and etc. So this is important for the person who is submitting and who is analyzing the originality report, and especially for the instructors, that you may put a student's work through the Turnitin and you realize that it is 0%. You should not just be happy that there is no plagiarism. It calls for a deeper analysis. Sometimes when you find a higher percentage of similarity, we need to check, is it because we had put in the references, and the references obviously, because if you're using the APA, the same way that Dr. Ojuang is referencing is the same way that Dr. Kebugi is referencing if you're using the same reference. So they may show a similarity. So there are exemptions you need to exempt, and you need to omit the bibliographies or references. And I had also talked earlier on about the rubric. So for us to be able to do that, I just want to mention a bit. The reason why some of us probably may get tempted to just copy and paste is because we have various and many databases, electronic resources, not only in TUK, but in most of our universities. I'm only giving a screenshot of what we have in our library. We have subscribed to the databases. We also have the free access to databases, which we have already signed agreements with them. But for those of us who are in TUK, we do agree and we know our library is very small in space. We are not worried about that. We have a very rich electronic resources databases, and therefore you can use the databases wherever you are, at the comfort of your home, at the comfort of your office. So you seriously don't even need to come to TUK. So long as we have registered you, you can be able to do that. And in case there is a problem, once you visit the library webpage, there is a portal of Ask a Librarian. You can put any information or any queries that you may have. And putting my last slide, for most of us, we had the remote access or remote X. We took people through on training of the remote access, but we upgraded the remote access in mid this year, around May, June, which now we are having My Loft, which is library on my fingertips. And everybody who was on remote X has already been migrated to My Loft. And you can see what is being shown here is the phone, because all of us have the phone, and we are saying that you can have your whole library using the phone that you have. In this one, we are saying it allows libraries to facilitate seamless and secure access to library subscribe premium resources to the users 24/7 and wherever they are. And it is an ecosystem of application with web application and browser extension. And this makes it very easy for the users to discover, to access, to organize, and to share personal and professional information. So all these resources that I showed in the previous slide, you can be able to get them through your phone or through your iPad, through your desktop, or even any device that you may be having. And I think I would like to stop there. Mine was just to say that when you are submitting your work to Turnitin, submit, but do not put in the repository. Submit the work. You will find that probably you have 30% of similarity. You can improve your work. When you submit it the second time, you find you have 20% because of the improvement. It will show you the similarity, and maybe you had not done the proper referencing. And that is the way you improve your work before you submit. If you make a mistake of putting in the repository and you submit your work the second time, it will also check your first draft that you have given. And if you had 30%, your second one will have 60%. If you also put it in the repository, the third one that you're giving, you have 100%. I have seen a lot of people making that mistake, but it is always good when you are very sure it is your last draft, the final draft. That is the one you put in the repository, because it goes to the repository of Turnitin, I think in Chicago. And once it goes into the repository, you cannot be able to remove it. When you try to remove it, it takes a bit of time, and they'll request you to tell your administrator to write to them. To avoid all this, it is important for us to know, once you're submitting because you want to check the similarity for you to improve on your work, do not archive or do not put in the repository. Just say no repository, so that once you check and you know your similarity, you do the improvements where the report shows you. And I think, Dr. Ojwang, I would like to end there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kibuge. We really enjoyed your session. So I underestimated how important this session was, and also how much people actually enjoyed it. We still have 84 in attendance and some people watching on YouTube. So we have almost 120 people still listening. So at this point, we'll take just another few minutes so that we can have the panel discussion, so we can answer some of your questions. We have maybe a few questions that were asked by Dr. Oriko. So we just want you to put your electronic hand so that we can have this discussion. I'm just going to ask, I'm just going to put the panelists right here in front of you so that they can be seen. So please, Dr. Rico, I think you're still here. Please just go ahead and ask. Dr. Martin, I think people would like to see your face. Dr. Sarah Kibuge. Also, people would like to see your face. Please show us. Professor Rina, are you still here? Yes, thank you very much. See, all these professors are supporting this, so very good. Thank you very much. And unfortunately, Dr. Araba had to go for a meeting, but she just asked me she sent me a message and asked me to read it to you. And she has a message for students and she has a message for lecturers. To the lecturers, she said we should lead by example, e.g. cite references when teaching all the time. Push for ethics in the university so that students appreciate the process before graduating. And to the students, reminder, success without integrity is failure. We should strive for success by preserving academic integrity. She says, read, 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 and read. The more you read, the more it's easy for you to write. And please do ask questions. Don't just sit there and hope to present a very good publication. Thank you very much. That's from Dr. Hibbert. Dr. Mukua, I wonder if your sound is back, but maybe we'll just add you here so that we can also just appreciate your effort to this discussion. So Dr. Oriko, could you please go ahead? You had a question. Please just unmute and then speak up. We'd like to hear your voice also. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Ojwang. This has been a very good session, and I really want to appreciate all the presenters. They've given us really good information. My question was very simple, and I noticed that when I asked it, you said it's a really big thing, but I think it is something that should be started right from the beginning, so that, you know, the ethical issues are actually addressed right at the very beginning. And when I did ask the question, I think Dr. Sarah, she said that there is a plagiarism, an anti-plagiarism policy, a draft that is in TUC, and it is awaiting approval. So we are looking forward to this approval. But I think issues of ethics is very important when we are dealing with academics. And even in our class notes and everything, we use a lot of information from the internet, and we tend to give it to the students, and yet we are actually plagiarizing. And sometimes it might be good to have this board maybe regularly checking on actually what is going on. So the question is there an ethical board? And I think the answer was there is none as yet, but probably what what departments could do is have their own mini ethical boards so that whatever is taking place within the department is in line with what is really good and what should be done. Thank you. It's not really a question, but maybe more of comments. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Rico. I also know that if we just have our mini ethical reviews in the departments, can you still publish that paper? You know, can you publish the paper? Or we now have to go out to go to other universities to get ethical clearance? That's a question to you, panelists. Dr. Kibuge.
If I may just say something, you know, NACOSTI has a list of accredited, you know, ethical boards, and they want people in the sciences, but essentially to fit into those accredited bodies. So I wonder if that approach would then allow you to publish widely, considering that now they're looking at accreditation. Maybe there's some rogue ethics boards that they're trying to avoid coming up, you know. So it looks to me like right now, I think what is happening is that when we research in TUK, we are encouraged to identify an ethics board that is accredited on that list for purposes of you know, getting approvals, licenses, and also to do certain things that you can't do without an ethics approval. So it looks to me like that's the direction at the moment. Having something internal is a good idea, at least to make sure people are ready, but it might mean going out and actually getting the approvals when it comes to the time of publishing.
Yes, thank you, Martin. Dr. Kibuge?
I think I would agree with what Martin has said. And by the way, ethics is a very wide area. And even as we are looking at the research, we are simply saying is doing what is right, even when no one is watching. So it is doing what is right when you're writing, even when you think you're not going to put it through the Turnitin. So this is so personal, but as it is a question of attitude. And as we know, any research you carry out, you are supposed to give a copy to NACOSTI, and they're supposed to give you a license. And once you sign, how many of us even go to the field with the licenses that we are given by the NACOSTI? How many of us go for it? And yet, when you're going to carry out research, you're supposed to show that license that I have this authority from NACOSTI. After you finish, you're supposed to give a copy of your research. So these are things that are supposed to be put in place, but I think the problem has been the implementation. But as a university, I believe we can be able to put measures in place. We have the Directorate of Research, and I believe if we worked together for the common good of TUK, we can achieve something. And I believe even management is something we can be able to propose. We don't have to wait for the national one. And I believe most of the researchers will be very happy about this. I think that would be my comment.
Thank you. Professor Rina, would you like to comment on this?
Yes, I'd like to comment on that. Ethical approval boards are extremely important in all universities. To tell you the truth, I don't know why we do not have one at Technical University of Kenya. And just for those who might not know, ethical board, there are regulations on how you set up an ethical board, and they're supposed to have people within that board with specific academic qualifications. For example, just to give you an example, one of the persons who is supposed to be present in such a board is a medical doctor. For example, because you might have approvals, research requests that are going to involve human beings. One of the people cannot also miss is a veterinary person with a veterinary background, or at least something similar. So there are specific requirements on how to constitute ethical approval board, and they have to be trained. There's a specific training that they have to undergo before they are allowed to review research protocols for various researchers. And just to give you an example, there's no way Technical University of Kenya can get a huge funding or can compete with a huge funding with other universities, for example, from the European Union or any other organization, when we do not have an ethical approval board at the Technical University of Kenya. That one disadvantages you immediately. So those opportunities will go to other universities. And just to give you an example, there's a very good paper that I published with my master's student. I don't know if she's here, Victoria Mwaeni. And we submitted this work to PLOS One. It was tremendous, very, very good research. It was back and forth. They kept on asking me, why is it that your university does not have your own board? Why did you go to another institution to get yours? So they stuck on that until I withdrew the paper and submitted to another journal. Well, they could not patch on that. They suspected what we were doing because we didn't have our own ethical board. So it's a very serious, I don't know what I should call it, a breach, but we need this in the university, and it needs to be set up ASP as soon as possible. I think for now, those will be my comments on the ethical board. Wow. Maybe just to say also, the approval by NACOSTI is not equivalent to the ethical board. The approval by NACOSTI is just a research permit that enables you to go out there and conduct your research. It's not an ethical approval board. So you can't use the NACOSTI one and assume that it takes care of the ethical approval. No, they're two different things. You need to have ethical approval. NACOSTI approval is different. It's totally different.
Thank you very much. And yes, NACOSTI is approval, and that is what our students get. I have taken a class on a research class, and they just went to NACOSTI, and I think it's not fair because even our students have very good ideas. They can do very good research from undergraduate level, but it's just going to be a report that is put there somewhere that's not useful. So I'm also wondering, Professor Rina, Dr. Martin Kamala, you people have been here, Dr. Kibugi, why don't we have this ethical board in our university? Why don't we have it? I was fortunate to do my master's and PhDs out of this country, but both those universities, they had ethical boards that are very, very rigorous. In fact, one of the presentations that you threat is actually the ethical board presentation, which you have to go and do before about 18 people. So we need that. We really need that if you're going to improve ourselves. Thank you very much. I see James Nyabuga. Please go ahead and ask your question. Please put up your electronic hand if you have a question, and then we will just call you to speak.
Mine is not just really a question, but just a comment, especially now this goes to the students, whether they are undergraduate or postgraduate students. And I have to applaud the presenters for good work they have done. But there's one thing I think didn't come out clearly, especially in regard to reference management software system, because I think what came out is about citation and referencing. So I think we need to understand that the aspect of referencing is really an intricate matter, whereby we need really to understand how we do that citation. Because in many cases, I've seen both masters, postgraduate students, where they end up handling their work in a very manual fashion, whereby you find that they are keeping PDF of papers in one or more computer folders. They are using browser bookmarks for papers or articles that are not available in PDF format. And sometimes basically that one becomes a very complicated exercise. So therefore, they need to understand that we do have what we call the reference management softwares, which are in some are free, available online. And these reference management softwares, in fact, they are very important, very critical in terms of making and keeping a well-organized database of papers, and at the same time to enable one to cite those papers easily during the writing process. So some of the softwares, I think, which are free, they can check on Mendeley, they can check on Sotero, and such softwares, in fact, are very important during the writing exercise. So I think the students can take advantages of those free softwares which they can install in their laptops so that they can aid in terms of making the citation and referencing exercise easy and straightforward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Does any of these professors want to comment on that? Martin?
Well, you know, there's something you raised, a question you asked earlier about why is it that we don't, as a university, have this ethics board. My understanding is not official. It's just what I think is that being a new university on one hand, relatively, we are not research oriented, you know, already, or we don't have a strong legacy or history of research. So the need has not driven that agenda. It's now coming up because increasingly we are now getting involved in research. So this question is being asked. So I believe it'll come very soon. The other reason is technical universities like ours, especially, which is the flagship, is aligned to industry more than it is to academia, if you like. So with that kind of alignment, you'll find there are very many subjects for professions like engineering I can speak of, where academic research is not what drives the practice. It's more of, you know, the interaction with industry and what industry needs. Even research is generally applied and driven by industry. So you tend to be under a very different, you can say, set of rules that you're playing in some of these technical courses. So these two things, the fact that we're relatively new and the fact that large chunks of our course or curriculum is actually in industry, might be mitigating against the urgency of setting up an ethics board. It might be this kind of thinking, but that's just my own interpretation. It's not official.
Okay, but we are not making excuses. We actually need a board, true or false?
Yeah, I think so. I think we and what the other colleague said earlier, I mean, this was so sad. I mean, but it's true. If we're going to be international in our research outlook, we have to have a board. Otherwise, people start to doubt the integrity of your work.
Yeah, thank you very much. Dr. Naomi Waiganjo, you had a question. I have tried to look for it on the chat. I can't find it. Could you please go ahead and make a ask your question or make a comment? Thank you very much. Just unmute and go ahead. Okay, as we wait for Dr. Naomi Waiganjo, there are some questions that students are asking here, but I think they're really basic. So it means that we need to go back and really teach the students, you know, like questions like, where do you put the references? That's basic. And we should go back and teach. And maybe we should think about, to offer more support to students, we should think about even just having these sessions about research and writing, you know, as a group, just to support the research unit. So Dr. Martin can talk about online, Dr. Kibugi can talk more about, you know, using these softwares, Professor Rina, John, all of us can do something, and then the students can benefit. Yes, Dr. Kibugi, please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Ojwang. I've just talked to Professor Mbai. As we know, she has been the director of research. She was following us on YouTube. And what she has just told me is that TUK, we have applied at NACOTI for the ethics board, for your information. And she says it is on course, but we could not have been given because at that time we lacked capacity, that is people with the necessary competencies, but that was at that time. So probably now is something that needs to be looked at. And the other thing that he said, that we needed to build the capacity now to get these competencies, which did not allow us. Secondly, is that unless you have a permit, even if you did the research, you may not get the money. So even when you go to TUK, you must have that permit, whether we like it or not. So the two of them is like they go hand in hand. And because I believe now we have the capacity, we know, yes, we are saying we are a young university. Probably by the time the application was done, we are just too young. But now I do believe we have the capacity with people with the necessary competencies, and that issue should be revisited. I am saying this because after she talked to me, as we are saying, we have a directorate of research. We need to put it now or to take it to the next level. And this is for everybody. It's not just for one person.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I needed.
Maybe maybe this was actually this seminar was inspired from the School of Health and Biomedical Sciences, but we are glad library and online learning could join us. But maybe some recommendations can go from here to the research unit. At least the director of research is a member of School of Health Sciences, so we can have further discussions, but it's good to know that it's actually in progress. So I think we have even gone over time. So what I'd like to ask now is to just give your closing remarks, Professor Rina, let's start with Dr. Kamala, and then Dr. Kibugi, and then Professor Rina, and then we can call it a day. We want to thank everybody for being here. I want to specifically, before you say your closing remark, I'd like to just thank two students who, I'm just going to add them here so they show themselves. They were helping me with the, they were the IT people in control. So Kevin and Stephen, could you just show your faces so that people know? These are nutrition students. They are fourth-year students. They were the ones helping me with the technology. So Stephen, we want to thank you very much for your support and keep up the good work. Thank you. Okay. All right. So please, can we have the closing remarks?
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Alice, for setting up this event. I think this is a good sort of, precedent, and I hope other, disciplines also would think of doing the same thing. It's not only necessary for us to have these discussions to provide a means by which we share knowledge that's out there to educate. It's also a means by which we can actually, discuss issues that are relevant to us, because oftentimes some of the solutions that we need or provide are homegrown. On e-learning in particular, if I may focus on that, we find that the way we implement e-learning in TUK is very unique in so many instances. It's adapted from the ground based on our culture, our practice, our needs, things like those. If we did not do that, if we approached it in a generic way, you'd find that a lot of our issues on the ground would not be addressed. So this kind of adapted approach that allows us to craft, a space which is conducive for us to maintain our identity as researchers, as technical people, participating, you can argue, in the wider discussion. That identity is key. And it does mean then that we need to have more of these kind of sessions so that we can ask the difficult questions. What are the problems? Where are the pain points? Who are we? Where are we going? And why do we need to do things different? So from an e-learning point of view, a lot of the implementations that we have are based on the kind of feedback that we get from students and lecturers that help us to inform what to implement and how to apply. And I hope in research, as it grows, it'll be the same, that a lot of the research online activity will be very much driven by the need of the researchers on the ground. So this participatory type of event, I think, is something that I'm very happy to have been part of and would like to see a lot more of it around the campus. So thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you very much for the contributions. I think I learned a lot today.
You're welcome. Dr. Kibugi, your closing remarks, please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Ojwang. It has been a very educative afternoon. I am happy to have joined you. And I know most of us look at our small library and we just overlook it. I would like to say that what you get in TUK library in terms of the databases and the electronic resources is exactly what you get in KU, exactly what you get in University of Nairobi. simply because we belong to the same consortium. I would like to encourage all of us to visit the library webpage and see the kind of databases that we have and the electronic resources. For those of us who would like to be taken through the training on how to, not just to access, but to discover and how to analyze and interpret those resources, we are there in the library. We can even do it online. We do not have a problem. But I'm sure the databases we have are enough for all of us, and they're appropriate for all of us, regardless of whichever program that you're having. The other one is we have a library page for Facebook. Post your comments, your concerns, and even your questions, and we respond to you. The other one is I would like to encourage all of us, even the students, run your work through the Turnitin, and have said you can come to the library, we run it with you, we'll teach you how to run it and see the report yourself. And as I said, my team and myself, we are available to you so that we can take you through. Next time, as you are doing it, we would also like to be involved. And lastly, learn from us as a library. Somebody was talking about the referencing. We can teach you and we can train you, go through the referencing and all that. We're also praying that the curriculum would have gone through that will benefit, especially for the postgraduate students. And life is a learning process. Every day we learn something new. And I'm sure for all of us today, we have learned something that we did not know as we are coming to this seminar. Thank you very much and God bless.
Thank you, Dr. Kibuge. Over to you, Professor Orina.
Yeah, thanks very much, Dr. Alice, for the opportunity. And when I look at the chat, there are a number of text questions that we didn't have time to respond to. So let's have a continuous engagement within ourselves and the participants of this session, so that we can answer some of those questions that we were unable to answer because of time. There are very, very good questions on the chat that I've had time to discuss. So in addition to that, on behalf of the Technical University and the School of Health and Biomedical Sciences, I take this opportunity to thank all of you, the presenters and the participants. By the way, I think in future, Dr. Alice, we need to create more opportunities, because there were a lot of people who were complaining they are unable to log in because we had reached capacity. I think if we had enlarged capacity, probably had 200 people here in this session. So it has been extremely productive, and always a teacher, always a student. I learned a lot from each of the presenters, and I've improved myself also listening to others. And maybe just a suggestion that and Sarah and Martin, maybe we should arrange another presentation where I like to do a presentation on scientific writing that I've written a book on. Maybe in future we can have another one like this where we can talk about, we can take students through section by section how they're supposed to conduct their writing. But otherwise, I take this opportunity to thank all of you, and especially Alice also for initiating and coordinating the entire exercise. Asante sana.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much, all the speakers and everybody. What I would like to request is that in the future, when we send out an invite for you to register, please register. That way we know the number of people who are registered. I only had 100 people registered by 2 o'clock this afternoon. So what that means is that most people were registering after. So, but we were able to do, to stream it. However, we're going to send out the link so that all of us can watch it. And just, Professor, like you said, we actually need that scientific session writing very soon, because we have students who are doing research and just having a bit of problems just looking at their work. Like, yeah, they need to have more of these sessions. We know one session in class is not enough. So we thank you very much. We thank everybody. Dr. Oriko, I wanted you to say something to give us the vote of thanks, so then we can close the session. What do you think?
That's fine.
Thank you.
All
Please
right.
go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. We really appreciate everybody who has been able to attend this seminar, because without the attendance, then there would have been no seminar. And secondly, I want to thank all the presenters for the very invaluable information they have given us, Dr. Hamala, Dr. Kibugi, Professor Orina, and Dr. Araba. Thank you, Dr. Ojwang, for organizing this session. And I think we do need more sessions like this. It is very educative. We have learned a lot. Just like Professor says, you learn a new thing every day. Myself, I have learned a lot. And thank you so much for this session and for the whole afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you all for your patience. I will now end the session and you will get a link to watch it. Thank you very much. And